Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Daily Medieval Podcast with me. So today we have a really special episode actually because we've talked about Game of Thrones, we've done some interviews with some really interesting people and we talk about general history. But today we are talking about one of my many passions, which is Buhurt. Now, Buhurt comes from an old French word, which means to wallop. But essentially, if we think of the movie Knight's Tale, you have the jousting, you have the melee combat. Now, the melee combat is essentially Buhurt. So what do? I typically will go to a tournament, and I will fight someone one-on-one, and then in a team. Now, to stress, this isn't reenactment, and I should, I guess, say a disclaimer of that. This is real steel. Now, obviously the sword, which is behind me here, is blunt, but it is steel. And, you can get injuries from this sport. It's about the same kind of equivalent to rugby. But nevertheless, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to share with you today my medieval armour. We're going to look at it. We're going to talk about it. And then I'm going to show you some kind of stances, some moves that we kind of do. So let's jump right into it with kind of what I'm wearing now. So this is just kind of a linen tunic type thing, just kind of an undershirt. Now, one of the things that you will probably see is that I will get incredibly sweaty throughout this, pretty much because of the fact it's so hot. There's 3 layers essentially, and my armor weighs about 40 kilos. So it's going to become very heavy very quickly. And then below I'm wearing, these are just some tracksuit bottoms, but essentially you would also have kind of a leg gambeson, which I do not have. But nevertheless, let's jump right into it with the legs, essentially. So you start off, when you get dressed as a knight, you start off with your legs. Essentially because not only are these the easiest to put on, but you can do it yourself. And one thing that is going to be quite tricky, I've kind of set myself up to hopefully make it easier, but usually you would have about 2, even 3 people help you get dressed as a knight. These would be your squires. So we're going to start off with sabatons. So if I grab them here, these are your sabatons. So very flexible. These will go on your feet. Essentially, this is to protect your feet from being stood on, but more so from being to stop them from being broken by a rogue pole arm. When you swing a 2-handed axe, it's very difficult to just lift it back up. So it usually goes down to hit the floor. And if your foot's in the way, well, that can, obviously break your foot. So by putting these on, it means that you can pretty much quite easily protect your feet. So if I won't pop these on, but we'll move then on to your legs. So your legs are split up into 2 regions. Your lower leg, your kind of shin, in a way we wear kind of shin pads, and then your kind of upper leg. So this is what the lower leg looks like. This is kind of a typical kind of shin pad. Now you'll notice that it doesn't go all the way round. Now the reason for this is essentially movability. Now there are some rules in the melee, one of which is that you can't hit on the back of the leg. The reason is because it's unprotected. So when I put this on, you'll see essentially that the leg is protected from the front, but not from the back. But although you're sacrificing some safety, you do gain movability. So here we go. That's on my leg. Usually, obviously, I would wear shoes, but it allows me to be able to move my leg very easily. Now, one thing you should know when you're getting dressed is that straps go on the inside. So if I now go and put on my next leg, we'll be able to see this kind of starting to come together very quickly. But again, this would go on top of maybe a leg gambeson. Here we go. There we go. So we've got my legs. You can't really see them, but there they are, both of them. But you can see that, like I say, the back of my leg, maybe if I do that, is unprotected. So then we have our main legs. So if I just grab that here, Ooh. Here we go, very big. This is kind of your knee. This goes on the outside. This is kind of protects your knee from those side blows. And we can see that it kind of sits quite nicely. Ooh. There we go, like there. And it encases, again, it encases your leg, but there is still in the inside kind of a bit where you can get hit. But the question is, how do you tie this on? So the legs are quite simple. They just go on with a strap and then they stay on pretty much. But these are quite heavy. So how do you stick it on? Because if I do up the straps, it starts to slip, as you can see. If I let it go, it slips off. So what we do is we wear a weight belt or a C belt. So you would then wear a weight belt, which goes around your waist, to which you can then tie on your legs. Now, because of kind of it being quite heavy and quite clattery, I won't be wearing it. We'll focus on the top up so then you can kind of see it more, because I'm wearing my legs and at the moment obviously you can't really see them, but nevertheless we'll then move on to the gambeson. Now, through ease I've kind of put my arms on the gambeson, but you wouldn't typically do this. So if I put this down, I'll put on my gambeson for you. There we go. Now the gambeson is quite thick, it's fair inch or so, and it's padded, which makes it easy to kind of absorb them blows. And then, here we go. There we are. So, as I say, you wouldn't typically have your arms on, but I've just done it through ease because essentially what you then have is on the side, you have what's called an arming point. Now, typically having your arms all in one is really useful because it means less arming points. But I know people who, this will be one piece, this will be a different piece, this will be a third piece, meaning they have 3 arming points. Now, the problem with that is that, well, if a sword hits it, you get an armor failure because it can chop off the strap and then your armor flings off. But also it just means that you can get dressed really easy because I've only got one to do. So if I just kind of do up the straps on some of these, there are 3 straps that go underneath, like so. And again, these are all to be short, make sure that your armor stays on, and it's almost skin tight. So you become the armor, is what I'd like to think. But nevertheless, it can be a difficult job to do on your own, which is why you have squires to do it. Thankfully, this has worked quite well. Ooh. Now, another thing is that's always a point. So we can see it here, how my gambeson pokes through quite nicely. This helps protect your arm. Now on this side I don't have it yet, I'm going to feed it through. The problem is that when you're moving about, you can kind of cut and bruise yourself on the metal. So if I just pop this down quickly, here we go. There we are. Feed it through a bit, so it's a bit higher. Then we can put on the straps. Ooh. There we go, and I can already feel some sweat dripping down me a little bit because, like I say, it's a hot day. I think it's about 25 degrees, but it's very, very hot. There we go. So kind of just stuff in your gaps, and there we are. Now you'll notice as well, like on the legs, that the inside of your arm is relatively unprotected. Now, this isn't a massive issue because it's very unlikely to get hit on the on kind of the inside of your arm, but nevertheless, there we go. So there we go. We can kind of see. I mean, this part here really helps to protect your kind of inner arm. But there we go. So let me do up the gambeson as well. You don't have to do it up all the way. It can just be loose, but it helps to have it at least 1 or 2 straps done up, just because of the brigandine that's going over. Now, in Buhurt, the rules state that all of your armour has to be within a century of each other, or 2, I think. It's one or the other. So all of mine, I think, is about 1400s, I think. Your kind of bassinet helmet, which you can see behind me there, and then this armour. Now this is quite a standard armour. You'll see a lot of people in Buhurt who are starting out wearing this. Hot stuff. There we go. So we've got the gambeson on, which is our padded, kind of helps absorb them percussive blows. And we've got our arms. Like I say, you wouldn't typically do those now, but I've just done it through ease. Next thing is our brigandine. So if I get my brig up, here we go. I'm just going to spin it round, just so then you can see what its composition is like. Here we go. So if I hold it here, you can see that it's plated. It's got very different, many different plates, and they all slide within each other. So you can actually fold it up, as you can see, and you can move it about. So this helps with flexibility, with movement, and also it means if you get hit, it much better absorbs it. And then you can see there's some various plates up here to protect your shoulders and across the kind of your collarbone. So if I pop this on and up and over, I'll pop this down because it's a bit of a job, but not to worry. So again, straps facing front. Here we go. Ooh, seems we've got a bit twisted. That can always happen. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Took a second, but we're there. There we go, and then you've got to get your gambeson in. Hey, there we go. There we are. So here's our brig that's on. So like I say, you would have straps done up on the side, so this would kind of come in and you'd be encapsulated in it. I mean, I can try and do the straps, at least one as I'm talking, just to stop the clattering. But again, like I say, you would have a squire, maybe even 2 to do this, because I mean, you can probably tell from my voice that I'm already, I'm getting a bit puffed out already. Oh, I think I've got it in. Or is this on one of the straps that doesn't? Oh, what a mess, eh? Anyways, I'll leave it for now. It'll be fine. So, the question then is, we've got 2 large gaps on my shoulders. How do we then combat that? So, we do it with some pauldrons. Woo, and a gorget. Now, I've got mine attached together, just again through ease. But essentially, the bigger the shoulder, the better, to help deflect them blows as they hit you, and also to protect your neck and eventually, obviously, your head. So if I just quickly get that one as well, then we'll see pretty much 99% of the armor finished. Oops. There we are. Chuck that on. So here we go. We can see those on. If I just do this up, this just helps it keep it all together. So this gorget has plates under it, titanium plates, which help kind of any blows to like the neck, which you can get. You know, you have a stray sword can easily hit your neck, so it's good to, you know, make sure to protect the vitals. So these can go on fairly loosely, just as long as they're on and stay with the shoulder. And then just get this one. Again, these are something you can quite easily do actually on your own. It's pretty much just the arms and the brig. Putting that all on can be tricky. There we go. So if we just recap, I grab the microphone. So let's just have a look at the armour then all together. So we have, working from the bottom, we have our sabatons. We then have our kind of our shin pads almost, which you can see here. We then have what would be a bigger plate here, protecting our legs. We then have the gambeson on underneath, again for them percussive blows. We then have your brigandine on top. We then do the arms, like I say, these are all in one, protecting your arms. And then you've got your pauldrons and your gorget. So the culmination in this is that essentially there aren't actually that many gaps when we look, especially when I turn to the side. We can see that my arm, you cannot see any skin nor even much of the gambeson, apart from a little bit here and kind of, I guess, a little bit around here, which is really good. So when I'm fighting, essentially it means that any blows I get, I can hardly feel. And it's true. I mean, I've been hit by two-handed axes, been hit with all sorts, and you can hardly feel it. So essentially what would be next is the helmet and your gauntlets. So if I talk a bit about the helmet, if I just grab it, this my helmet is a bassinet helmet with a with an aventail. Here we go. So you can see very small eye holes with a bar going across to protect them from any swords, so then the swords can't go through. You then have breathing holes, and also I have a little switch that allows me to put the visor up. Now again, this is steel. This is very heavy. Ooh. I think it weighs about 5 kilos. And we have a chainmail aventail. So this is a padded hood that goes inside, and I've got some chainmail which helps protect the neck, especially the back of the neck, from any stray blows that might come my way. So if I just pop the helmet on just quickly to show you, you'll be able to see kind of, I guess, the full getup. So let me just pop this down like so, and then put the helmet down, up, ooh. And there we go. I don't know if the microphone will pick this up, but this is the helmet, the aventail across. Ooh, let me. Ooh. There we go. Now this makes me look a bit funny, but I'll take it. If I just. There's no glamorous way to look once you're in armour, unfortunately. But essentially you have a chin strap that will go over the chin and under the chin. This means that your helmet will stay on quite firmly. You then have, like I say, so we've got here the chainmail. Now the beauty of this is that, again, it protects my neck, especially from any blows to the side. It will just be caught by the chainmail. And then when I put the visor down, my vision is pretty much from here to pretty much on same on the other side, about here. So you can't see overly much, but you know, again, it's all about protection. Some people will have what's called a wolf rib, which is essentially the similar thing to this, but you have the bassinet helmet. You then have bars that come down and across, so you can breathe a lot better. But Jesus, is it a lot more scary. So let me just get this back off, just for ease, and then we can then talk about some stances and fighting. Oi, here we go. Ooh. There we go. Getting a bit sweaty, I am. But again, like I say, it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the fun. So now we have our armor. We are forgetting one thing, which is for our hands. We've got to protect your hands. Your hands can get hit quite a lot, especially when you're doing something on the lines of, well, if you're doing Buhurt, where you're doing a lot of grappling, or when you're doing longsword, where you can end up hitting their hands. So we wear a gauntlet. So if I put my hand in here, take out all the stuff inside it. So here's my gauntlet. As you can see, it covers the whole hands, and this is what's called a lobster tail because it kind of looks like a lobster tail. You can get ones that cover your individual fingers, but the problem with this is that if you get hit on one of those fingers, you can end up breaking them because the force has no way to dissipate. Whereas a lobster tail like this, if you get hit, it reverberates across the whole kind of plate, which can be a lot better. So you would then have obviously 2 of these, and again for ease I'm not going to wear it. And then you get to your sword and shield. Now in Buhurt there are 4 categories. 4 individual fighting categories. Typically this is done on the first day of the tournament. You have sword and shield, you have longsword, you have polearm, and you have what's called sword and buckler. Now people may recognize these as the very small shields. Usually they're about this big, like a plate. You see them a lot in gladiator battles, and essentially you would pair that with quite a light sword. Very quick, very kind of, you need a lot of movability. But here we have sword and shield. Now I typically do sword and shield and longsword. I don't actually have a longsword here, but I have my arming sword and my shield. So if I just grab these, this is quite a big shield, I will say. But before we get onto that, let's talk about the sword. So this is, like I say, now the reason I'm being able to hold this is because it is blunt. If I come quite close to the camera, you'll be able to see, I guess, also how thick it is. Kind of get an idea of it. This sword is particularly light as an arming sword. It's courtesy of Buhurt Tech, which I'll link there in the description if you want to see some of the armors that you can get. Really, I mean, this, like I said, this isn't sponsored. I wish it was, but anywho. So this is an arming sword. Very good reach, I will say. When we look at that, if I step back a bit, you'll see you can get quite a distance between you and your opponent. And again, it's quite flexible. Now, a lot of people say, just on this topic, that in army you can't move around. You're like a robot, just kind of waddling. Now, actually, what I can hopefully show you is that actually you are able to move around quite a bit. You can run, you can jump, you can do whatever. I mean, you can see from my arms, you can see that I can move around quite a lot. And when I think about hitting, kind of, it's very easy. There's no restriction at all. So let's move on to the shield. So you would have, I mean, I'm right-handed, so my arming sword would go in this arm. But obviously there are people who fight with a different arm. That's perfectly fine. There's no rules that state that you can't. Let me just take off that. So let's get to the shield. Now this is, like I say, a very big shield compared to some of the others. But it is what's called a punch shield. So here we are with the shield again. So what we can see is that it covers most of my body, which is what you want from a shield, because this is going to be what saves you them points, because the way that you score points in Buhurt is landing hits on your opponent. So by having quite a big shield like this, it means you're pretty safe. Now, I have painted on it the black cross, as we can see here, which stands for protection and defense, but I am more than open to ideas for any heraldic designs that I want to paint on. So we have your shield that's being able to cover yourself. You can move it up and down to cover any blows, but what we can see, if I show it to the camera, is just how thick it is. Now this is layered, and we talked about this in the Game of Thrones episode, the first one, which I will link. But there's a thing in movies where, well, two things. One is that a sword will come along and it will hit you and slice or whatever, and they'll die. They'll just dramatically fall down. This is not true. As you can see, I can hit without feeling anything. You know, even on my arms. I'm sorry if that's quite noisy, but there we go. That's a myth. The way that you would kill your opponent or take them down is by grappling, eventually making them so exhausted that they can't move, and you get them on the floor. And you then would take out a knife, such as a bollock knife, and you would then stab them through the visor or under the arms. Or you would take them captive. We see we see kind of a chivalric tradition that nobility would be captured rather than killed. So, going back to the shield, there's another movie mistake. And that's actually, we saw this in the first Game of Thrones episode, which is that if you hit a shield really hard, it will basically splinter and explode. This is not true. So if I get my shield and I put it on just here, there we go. Hopefully that will stay up somewhat. I guess essentially what I'm going to show you is that I can hit it really hard and nothing will happen. And you can kind of see there's many scratches and everything. Nothing. See? Not even a dent. So this idea in movies and media that you basically, that essentially someone will whack your shield and it explodes, it's just rubbish. It's a load of rubbish. But there we are. So let me show you some, I guess, some stances and everything. So unlike boxing, where you'll put kind of, I guess, your left foot forwards, if you're right-handed, in Buhurt you do the opposite. So to be able to create reach with your sword, you put whatever your sword arm is the leg that you put forwards. Now the reason is for this, if I kind of show you, if we kind of line up here, if I put this out, I can only reach so far. If I put my left leg forward, you know, I can only reach about here. If I put my right leg forward, I can reach much further. So the idea is that when you're kind of in your stance, you're able to reach your opponent a lot better. So you want to be able to create some gap between you and your opponent. So it's good to also, you know, bend over a little bit, but you don't want to put your head down. The helmets are very heavy, and you can get very tired very quickly. So as soon as you put your head down, you can start to, you know, not topple over, but it can really put strain on you. So you want to try and keep your head up, but whilst keeping your body kind of some space. And then you can hit. Ooh, gosh. Without hitting the light above. So, what a lot of people do is, now, you don't want to do what you see in Skyrim, which is like your arms ahead of you, kind of like this, and then hitting like such. That's not how you do it. Because if you hold the sword like this for a long time, eventually you'll get tired. What a lot of people will do is balance the sword on their neck, or kind of on their pauldron, really. Now the reason for this is that it's a lot lighter, you can move around and it doesn't hurt your arm, and then when you get to your opponent you can then come out and hit them. Hit there or hit there. Now where do you hit on your opponent? Well, in kind of, I guess, medieval schools of thought, you divide the body up into 7 regions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. So the idea is that basically when you hit someone, you move between those regions. You go 1, 5, 7, you know, hit the head, then the arm, then the leg, to kind of really like jazz it up a bit. And so that's one way to do it. Now another way that people do is what's called, I guess it's called like the house or the tent, but essentially it's, if I put this here to grab the shield, I'll be able to show it better. Essentially you create a lot of distance between you and your opponent, and you can use it to really get in some good taps. So, essentially, you hold out your sword in front like a triangle. I'll do it like this so you can see. And you match it with your shield. So you go about like this, and you're able to kind of move it around and block with both your sword and your shield. And then you can come out and hit or hit, you know, as it may be. Now, just quickly going back to this one, you know, a lot of people, so what do you do with your shield? You know, some people hold it down, some people hold it out. Essentially, you want to keep it up, almost like a little kind of a 90-degree angle with your arm, like an L shape. Keep it up and keep it close, so that, you know, you can easily move it up or down as you may need be, and then you can attack. But like I say, some people use the house, if I kind of show you, because it creates a lot of distance between you and your opponent, and you're able to then attack and defend as you may. But some people obviously do other things. They'll kind of put the sword almost like this, so although that leaves you open, you kind of got the shield a bit more in front of you, so you can turn, and then you can kind of whip it out. It's not a great one. I mean, it's usually one that you would go into. So, for instance, you start off here, you hit, maybe you kind of go over the top, and then you bring it back, kind of up here, to then strike. You know, you kind of do whatever you feel is best, but those are the two standard ones. Now, obviously, when it comes to grappling, it can be very different because you're getting your opponent on the floor. But for now, I think that concludes fairly well. So, thank you ever so much for watching. Please excuse my sweatiness, but I hope you did enjoy seeing the armour. It's a brilliant thing. I absolutely love it. And there are various teams across the UK. If you go on the HMB UK website, you can find where they are across the country. I'm in Norwich, so like I say, if you're in Norwich or Norfolk and you want to come, do drop me a message, and you're more than welcome to. But there we go. Thank you ever so much for watching. Have a great week. Oh, and just a reminder, the episode with Gem Deducci will come out this weekend. Really fascinating stuff it was, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. Cheers.